Hello, everyone. Welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo, the go-to podcast for those seeking success that resonates on every level. Our guide on this journey to success is Dava, co-founder of Latreia Coaching and Consulting. Each episode, we challenge you to step outside your comfort zone in redefining holistic success. Because in order to truly excel, one must rise in all aspects of life: spiritual, physical, relational, and philanthropical. So buckle up. Let's explore how your vocation and well-being can harmonize perfectly. And give a warm welcome to the host of Challenging Your Status Quo, Dava.
All right, everybody. Good afternoon. This is Dava. Welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo. It's episode 2 of season 4, and I'm very, very excited because it is still the new year. I believe we can still say Happy New Year to everybody, but the reality is that this new season, this will be episode 2, and the gentleman that I have joining us today. Really, well, first of all, he's all over the place. I mean, I think he just about belongs to every single board you can possibly think of, but he's been in the industry for quite some time, seen a bunch of different cycles, and what an appropriate thing to be talking about today, being the new year, because 2025 and 2026, well, they kind of look a little bit different. But so we're going to have this gentleman on in just a sec. But I just wanted to remind you, thank you so much for coming on, and to remind you that challenging your status quo is really all about you. So thanks for listening. And this is the podcast that will talk about your work, vocational well-being. And that's going to be the main focus. And that's why you joined. But the reality is that there are 5 other well-beings that we'll tend to balance in and out of challenging your status quo, because I want you to challenge your own personal status quo. And that is your spiritual well-being, your relational well-being, your physical well-being, your mental well-being, as well as your philanthropical well-being. In other words, what do you do with the blessings that you've been given? And 2025 turned out to be that way for many. And it's really been an incredible privilege to find out that when someone's looking at their business, sometimes it just comes down to the fact that they're not sharing the blessings that they've had to take them to the next level. Believe it or not, giving is probably one of the greatest things that you could be doing. So today, though, is going to be a lot of vocation because of the guests that we have, but we're going to cross over into that relational side and how important that is, especially because of the topic that we're going to be talking about. The gentleman I'm talking about just got featured in Rob Chrisman's article, and Brian Vieaux. And so I'm going to invite Brian on, but as I'm bringing him on, I just want to tell you guys that Brian currently is the president of MISMO, but it goes way beyond that. Like I said, he's probably one of the busiest people you'll ever meet. He's out on social media. He's got articles, which I'll talk about in just a little bit. He's an author. Again, here he is. Brian, welcome to Challenging Your Status Quo.
J.A., thank you so much for having me on. And by the way, for your audience who might be Curb Your Enthusiasm or Larry David fans, you technically cannot say Happy New Year after, I think it was yesterday. So.
Oh, after yesterday? Is that what it is? Is that the rule?
Yeah, that's what would Larry do? So.
Okay. Well, then I will yield to that. But at least we got that in there. But Brian, I led you into this thing, but I'd like for you to tell our audience. I know you've been in the business. I've been in the business for 30 years. You beat me on that one.
A little bit.
Is it about 45 years? Can you tell me just a little bit about Brian Vieaux? Did you do that?
Yeah. So I started in mortgage banking in 1991 as a loan officer. If you want to just put things in perspective, the par interest rate, like literally the day I started, was like 10.75%. And my first job was today we would call it a lead gen guy, but my first job was just to call consumers that were in our servicing book of business. And I was calling people that were at 12 and a half and above, and just had a simple script. If we could lower your payment by $100 a month, would you be interested? If they said yes, I passed the lead over to a loan officer. If they said no, I crumpled it up, threw it away. I was like a CRM before there were CRMs. So yeah, 1991 was my entrance into the business. And then I spent 30 years in kind of the origination management space, in retail, in consumer direct, in wholesale, correspondent lending. I joined MISMO last October, and then in between, lending management and MISMO, I spent 6 years with a company called FinLocker, which helps lenders and loan officers. Jay, you're familiar with the technology, but helps lenders and loan officers engage with early journey, not quite yet ready home buyers. So yeah, a lot of passion for home ownership education, and a lot of respect, frankly, for the role that loan officers play in our business.
That's for sure. Well, again, welcome to the show. I mean, you hardly even touched on really what you're involved in, right? I was looking. You're part of boards as well, right?
Yeah. Sometimes you wonder if you're doing a little bit too much, but I'm on the board of the Michigan Mortgage Lenders Association. That state up north that you folks down in Ohio refer to us as. So on the board of Michigan's Mortgage Lenders Association. I'm on the board of the Broker Action Coalition, which is a advocacy effort to serve wholesale broker originators. I'm on the board of a nonprofit that is an after-school education recovery program in the city of Detroit. And then I advise a few companies and friends who are doing some various things. And then I have a day job running MISMO as well.
That's the day job. That's right. Well, I mean, and part of the reason why I'm kind of harping on that, because, and thanks for sharing all of that, is that I just really want people to understand that who they're really listening to. Not that I need to really be introducing that, as someone who can clearly speak on where we've been, where we are, and more importantly, where this industry is headed in 2026, which is such an important topic, because you've seen the cycles, I've seen the cycles, and been in the business, and you're right, the double digits. I still remember thinking that when it hits into the single digits, interest rates, that all of us would become millionaires, right? That we would just things would change, and then it just kept sinking and sinking to the point now where it's absolutely crazy that people are telling me, well, rates are a little bit higher than I want it to be.
Yeah, right. I mean, it's still, if you think about, getting a 30-year fixed rate mortgage today with a 6 handle, it's a damn good interest rate, man.
Yeah.
Really good interest rate.
Absolutely. And so you were recently featured in Chrisman Commentary. You wrote an article that really, I just want to kind of set the tone a little bit for everyone that's listening. And that is 2025 exposed us, right? 2025 exposed us, and 2026 will separate us. And so I wanted kind of to have that theme, because we've been talking about that. When we started our coaching business at Latreia, one of the things that we were talking about is that this AI thing is really here, and it's here to stay. And that was just a blip 3 years ago, to a point now where in 2025 it's a non-negotiable tool. And so people started digging into it. But where things started to fall apart for a lot of different people was what it meant. People were more scared of it than they were to realize that they have something that AI doesn't have, and that's the human factor of who they are. And so I want to kind of talk a little bit about 2025 exposing us, and 2026 will separate us. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to, for everyone that's watching, I'm going to put the link here to the actual, not the article on Chrisman, but the actual viewpoint, I believe is what you call that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I love that, by the way. And I'd love for people to go to this link and view it, for one
There
of
you
a
go.
good description, and then sign on to it, right? Because I think you have a lot to say. So if you don't mind, I'm gonna dig right in.
Yeah.
And I'd love to just say, because in the article itself, you've said that 2025 wasn't just tough. It was a turning year. And what made it different from other down cycles, if we want to call it that?
I think there's probably a bunch of things. I think one of the things that I noted was, as I thought about like the first half of the year and the conversations I was having, inevitably the conversations always went to, well, once rates do this, this is my plan. And I'm like, oh, okay. So what about your plan when rates don't do that? Then what are you going to do? Right. There was like the first half of the year, even into Q3, there was like this almost like a little bit of an entitlement that we had, that we deserved rates to drop so that our business would do this, whatever this was. And I started watching people kind of fall off the things that are the tried and true, business development and relationship management things, like staying connected, meaningfully connected with people. And so when rates weren't doing what we thought and hoped they would do, as a loan officer, I slowed down on my engagements. Like, what am I going to say? I told them in March that rates were going to drop, and now it's July and they haven't dropped. They actually went up a little bit. What am I going to do? And so people were like a little bit paralyzed by just the, rates kind of stay in that zone where they stayed. And that's not really, that's like one thing. And by the way, and this based on your coaching experience and just by being a student of our business, the top 1% in our business, they have no problems. They don't care what rates are doing, because they're not about rates are not going to dictate what their plan is. Their plan is their plan, and they're going to execute on their plan regardless of rates. So, the other thing that really has been happening, and it continues to happen, and it's happening faster every day, is I've seen more loan officers leveraging and I'll say AI enabled tools versus just AI, because AI could mean a lot of stuff.
A lot of things, right? People don't even know what they're asking, honestly. Right?
But I think, AI enabled tools, to me, and watching loan officers that were having success leveraging the right tools for them. And I'm not going to pick winners on tools, because I think the toolkit there's a lot of great tools in the industry. What's going to work for JA versus what works for Brian may not be the same toolkit and tech stack. But whatever you decide to use, you have to use it. You have to implement it. You have to adopt it, because it doesn't do any good if you purchased it and you never open it, right?
That's right.
And so what I started to see happening was, I could tell who was using some tool and some system. And how I could tell is because they were more visible to me. I was seeing them more frequently. And, I appreciate you, sharing the link to my article, but let me just tell a little bit of a story on why I write every 2 weeks for Chrisman. Do I write every 2 weeks for Chrisman because I have such a love for sharing knowledge with the industry? Yeah, a little bit, maybe. Do I write for Chrisman because I'm a lifelong fan of Rob Chrisman? Yeah, maybe a little bit. I write for Rob Chrisman every other week because every other Tuesday I show up in his newsletter where 85,000 people have subscribed.
Right.
I've committed to showing up for those 85,000 people, or however many click it and read it. Yes, think I'm adding value to the industry, and that's important to me. And yes, I'm honoring my longtime friend Rob Crispin by doing this in his newsletter. But at the end of the day, I'm doing it for me. Yes. And I'm also doing it to show the loan officers that are watching here today that if I can do it, and I've been in this industry as long as I've been and have built a decent brand and following, I'm still trying to grow that and advance it and actually get deeper in conversations with people and have better and deeper relationships with people. And this is one way I can do that at scale by showing up every 2 weeks in Rob's newsletter.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it keeps you accountable, right?
Yeah.
And it really is important. I think it's very, very important, especially with the world of AI, to be self-focused as well, by the way.
Yeah.
Because I think sometimes when with the world of AI, even the simplicity of writing emails, which the majority of people that I know that quote unquote use AI, that's what they relegate themselves to, is, well, it just helps me write my emails a little more succinct, right? Which is just such a small piece of what AI could be doing for you.
Yeah.
But when they use AI, sometimes, you know, I've heard people that say, well, it knows me well enough that I just send out whatever it prints out. And that's such a dangerous place to be.
Oh, yeah.
You still got to think of you very specifically, because you have such an incredible tool in your hand. You better really fully understand what it is that you're sending out, and not rely on that. So you got to think about yourself first. And I think that part of the reason why you do write is to keep yourself going and being accountable to what's really happening in the industry. Well, considering the fact that you're with MISMO, it's even more important that you really, know the industry and know it incredibly well. So it keeps you accountable that way.
Yeah, and I think for loan officers, and you already hit this on the head, JA. You could get a referral from an agent, and a consumer gets referred to JA from Brian, the agent. I don't know one single consumer that isn't going to go check on JA. Okay, I got referred to JA, but who the heck is this guy? What does he know about the business? How long has he been in the business? How many people has he helped? And so, they used to Google you. Now they don't Google you anymore. They go into their chat GPT and they say, is JA a trustworthy loan officer in Columbus, Ohio?
Right.
You better show up. It better know who you are, or else you're dead in the water.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's a lesson on its own, by the way. So being involved. And one of the things that you said is to choose and use, right? And so AI has so many different components. I mean, I hear people that say, I use this one for this, that for this, that for that, this for that. And they're all GPTs, by the way.
Yeah.
I use Grok because it's more conservative. I use this because it's that. And I use ChatGPT because of this. But honestly, especially when it comes down to like the GPTs that it is, choose and use it, because one of the greatest parts about AI is when it starts to really understand who you are and what you can, but when you're jumping around all over the place and you're just getting canned answers at that point, because it doesn't know you.
Yeah. I think that is like, if you're like a master's level AI student, go ahead and use your favorite for whatever you're working on. Because if you're a master's level, user of it, the right prompts, you're going to get really good output. Most of us, myself included, I'm sure the same as with you, JA.
Yeah.
I don't trust, we're a Microsoft shop here. I don't trust Copilot, not because I don't like Copilot, not because I don't trust Microsoft, but I haven't spent 2 years training Copilot like I have my account on ChatGPT, right?
Right. Exactly.
And so I will not try and use anything else. I'd rather accept what someone might say is a slightly worse output from ChatGPT, whether it's an image or whatever. Yes. But at least I know it knows me, and it's gonna speak in my tone and my voice and in the way I like to be understood.
Yeah, for sure. And we're going to be walking into that, because one of the things that really suffered with this whole mentality is the whole idea of relationships and such. Yeah. But I do want to ask you one more thing about, that stemmed off the article. You wrote that the middle disappeared, right? And I remember kind of turning my head on that. And so I was reading that, and I know most people on this call probably have not even read that yet, but if they have, what is that middle mindset? I mean, and that's really what it is. You're not talking about people, and we're talking about mindset here. Can you just talk about that just a little bit, what that is, middle mindset?
Yeah, as I think about, kind of my history of knowledge of kind of loan originators and that cohort of loan officers. Again, you always have your top top 1, top 5, top 10%, whatever it is. And then sadly, the reality is we have always had the bottom 15, 20, 25, 30, whatever that is, right? And seemingly in any market, the same type of person is going to be in both of those buckets, regardless of what the market's doing.
Right.
And then you had this middle that I always felt like there was a big group in the middle that was actively trying to get to the next level. And I just felt like that. I think over the last couple of years, that's gotten compressed. It probably hasn't fully disappeared, but when you're writing, you want to get some kind of quotable words out there. But I do think it's a much smaller segment of the market that's in this kind of constant learning and yearning to get to the top 10%. There's a lot of people that kind of just settled in and said, this is my lot in life and I'm comfortable here. And I think we've seen a lot of people just fall from that middle bucket into that lowest tier, which is, basically one foot out the door of the industry anyway, because they have more of that woe is me mentality. It's not me, it's the market. It's not my fault. A lot of you can coach them all day long if they do not adapt their mindset. Sadly, there's no hope for them, right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I meant there. And I also think that what I saw was some of that middle of the industry embrace tech and AI in particular a little bit more than some of the others, and they've managed to kind of elevate themselves up that way. Because I think the other thing with AI that I love, for me in particular, and I gave an example of writing in this Crispin thing every 2 weeks. That's a way for my voice to get scaled to 85,000 people in the industry through Rob Crispin. Each of us can do that every day, maybe not 85,000, but every day on LinkedIn or Instagram or Facebook. And I've started to see the loan officers learn and figure out how to scale their voice, how to scale themselves, and be able to connect and be visible to more people in real time.
Yeah, it might not be 85,000 like you said, but it could be as simple as being able to get into their social media, which is such an important thing. You mentioned earlier that people can now go into ChatGPT and kind of just look you up and hopefully you show up there.
Right.
But the other side of that is even something as simple as LinkedIn. There are lots and lots of loan officers that don't even know why they lost that deal when they were competing against somebody else. And it could be as simple as the fact that when they did look them up, both on LinkedIn, you still had your fourth grade picture compared to somebody who's very active on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And now they categorically put that they're more up to date, and that must be how they run their business. And so they'll choose somebody that has more presence in there.
Yeah.
So all these things become very, very important. And in the world of AI, to your point, it simplifies so much of that. What do I say? What do I do? What are some of the relevant things that we should be doing? And honestly, the intelligence level is evening out.
Yeah.
And what's really changing is really the emotional intelligence. But as we're walking into that, Brian, what behaviors do you that you've seen clearly separated those who adapted from those who waited and or still waiting?
Yeah, I think I am a firm believer that the single best resource for a home buyer, especially a first-time home buyer, and if we want to go a layer deeper, especially what I would call an early journey, not quite yet ready first-time home buyer, single best resource bar none is a local loan officer. And I think that what I've seen in the last year is the separation is happening because the best originators, if we want to rank them by volume, and if we're ranking them traditionally by volume, they probably are heavy purchase loan officers that have great referral relationships. I've seen some of the best of those are highly, highly focused on getting themselves to the consumer first in their community as that single best resource for financial education, financial preparation. They're even recognizing that, yes, they're not giving up they're not giving up on managing and maintaining relationships with realtors, but they're hyper focused on building their own brand so that consumers find them first in their community when they're not yet ready to buy. Because, you know, if we don't do that, we are going to be taken out by tech.
Yes.
Right? Because these consumers, these young home buyers want these prospective home buyers that might be 6 months or 12 months or longer from buying a home. They're not talking to a real estate agent. Why would they? But they want to know, where they are in terms of being ready to buy, and they want to have a plan. And again, who better to be that trusted resource for that plan than a loan officer? And
That's for sure.
too often we don't show up until there's someone raising their hand saying, I'm ready, I've got a contract. And that, sadly, it's now gotten to the point where that's going to be too late, very soon.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about there is the ready, willing, and able, right? I'm a realtor, by the way, and I'm a lousy excuse for a realtor. I have a real estate license and build it only based on referral. But one of the things for sure is that forever and a day, and even while teaching it, I still hear the words ready, willing, and able. And that mentality is stemmed off of the real estate industry, and that's continued on. And if that mentality is inside of a person, you're already behind the 8 ball there.
Oh, yeah.
You're gonna be a dinosaur, just like a lot of agents are feeling that. Just because, it used to be that they could say that because they held on to the properties, right? The actual, they had a book. In fact, it was a thick book. Right. The only way you could see houses was to go to a realtor and say, what's available? And then they would take out the MLS books. Well, somewhere along the way, we all decided it was a smart idea for us to release it exactly to the Zillow's, Trulius, Realtor.coms of life, and not realize that the golden egg is being released. And now they don't even come to us. So much of it, they'll shop online. And then the first conversations they'll have is the loan officers. So there's an even playing field in the sales anatomy of what used to be realtors and loan officers.
Yep.
And so partnerships start to come into play. But what's interesting about what you're saying is that there's AI, by the way, that is one of the greatest things. And you actually covered it. You said that jobs didn't disappear. There's an awful lot of people that are in our world saying, well, I'm going to be just like a travel agent. I'm going to lose my job, blah, 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 blah. But you don't believe that. You don't believe in that whole idea that a job is going to disappear, but that it evolved, right? So being that true advisor, can you just talk about that for just a sec?
Yeah, I think, and this is one of the things that you would see a difference in certainly the top 1% of originators versus the rest of the business and how they treated their business. Typically the top 1%, let's just go back even 5 years. That top 1%, they weren't doing the mechanical things of loan manufacturing. The highest and best use for that top 1% was then and is today their ability to impact relationships at a referral level, and doing it through building trust and establishing trust and maintaining trust. It wasn't because they were they could calculate the DTI faster than the guy next door. That never was the case. Too often loan officers say they're so busy because they have to do all these things in the loan manufacturing process, which means they're just not relying on the systems in their company or even having their own smart systems for doing that. So now I think the top 1% never go away, because they've already understood how to outsource the lowest tasks that are going to bring them revenue, and always own the highest revenue producing tasks, managing and being the point of relationship. And so they're not going to get replaced by AI. I would argue they're probably going to take more market share, because they already know how to scale themselves. This is just going to help them scale even more.
Yeah.
The
Well, you're
mid, you know,
yeah.
the bottom tier of loan officers are probably going to be impacted in terms of their job. Either that, or they're only going to have the toughest, roughest of the deals that are out there. And nobody, I mean, who would want that, right?
Right.
Uh, and so, I think the winners in our business are going to be those that embrace technology, in this case, AI-enabled tools, to help them scale and focus on activities that are truly money-making activities and not just busy activities.
Yes. Yeah. Like you said, gone are the days of the ready, willing, and able, but now education is a very important piece, right? Because in a relationship building side of it, if you think about all, what realtors are looking for, they want to have a really good partner,
Yeah,
right? A partner that actually has their back, and someone who's able to educate, able to listen, able to craft what the right deal might be. It's no longer just order taking.
right.
And so, and from a loan officer perspective, I mean, I believe, again, AI helps us get that intelligence level. If you at all, um, question your level of intelligence regarding the mortgage industry and crafting those, again, AI can help you with that,
Yeah,
right? And so, you actually wrote that AI didn't replace loan officers; it exposed them,
yeah.
right? And so, what do you think got exposed? Is that what you're talking about? Is basically, if you don't know it and you don't know how to craft relationships, it's pretty
Well,
much
I think
exposing you that way?
I would say the exposure was those that weren't leveraging any of the tools, were now all of a sudden, not, they weren't showing up in searches, or they weren't, they weren't being selected, if you will, because you could have a less technically proficient loan officer from a mechanical perspective, but one that is embracing tools that allow them to scale their presence. I mean, let's just face it, not all consumers are, the sharpest knives in the drawer. So
That's
um,
right.
if they see my face, my words, my voice, at some point when it's time to get a mortgage, like, oh, I know Brian. They don't they would have no idea if I'm the most technically proficient, but they've seen me. There's familiarity, maybe even a layer of trust because of that familiarity. And so it's the loan officers that have just kind of said, I'm not going to embrace it. I'm not going to go on social. I'm not going to do video. I'm not going to put content out. They're the ones that have been exposed, I believe.
Yes. Yeah, for sure. And you kind of downplayed it a little bit, but I think more than ever, I think the know you, like you, but the most important part being that I trust you. I mean,
Yes.
this is to most people we're going to serve. It's the largest investment they'll ever make,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And they're not gonna throw it into online for their largest one that they're ever going to make. And education is really, I mean, and you talk about it, left point of sale, right? Left
Yeah.
of point of sale, I should say, which
Point
is
of thought.
really what.
Point of thought is like
Yeah.
way before point of sale.
Yes, for sure. And talks about, why was education more effective than urgency in
Yeah.
2025.
It's
So
trust. Education builds trust, right?
yes. And that's exactly what most people are looking at, because they can go into ChatGPT, but you know what? And get educated, so to speak, but they still don't trust it.
That's
Right.
right.
So they
Yep.
want to be able to run it through, just like what you and I just talked about. If you're going to use AI at all, even if it's as simple as writing your emails, you better know your subject matter so that when you read that email, that
Yeah.
it is what you meant to say. Wrong or right, you own what's wrong or right. Don't
That's
let
right.
ChatGPT own what's wrong or right. You better know it. And so, in so many different ways, your clients are going to count on you. And that's why I think the whole idea of advising, by the way, and Brian, that's what I loved about what you were also talking about. And I think I told you that I was running it through a coaching group, a cohort group that I was running through yesterday. And I said, you guys understand, some of you guys have just used it because it's a sexy term to say advisor on your business card. But the reality is it's as real today as ever that you be an advisor, which means that you're listening, you're actually formulating, you're educating, you're doing all those kind of things. And, the sad part is that there are big banks that we're serving that truly, I believe, could call themselves truly advisors because there's so many players inside banks, but they won't even allow their people to be called advisors. And that's unfortunate because they got to figure that out because advisors where it is turning into, don't you agree?
100%. And one thing an example I'll share, and again, you'll know this, but to me, the difference between a loan officer and an advisor is a homeowner comes to me and says, I saw that the Fed's lowered rates. I want to refinance to lower my payment. So based on just that statement, a loan officer would say, no problem, let's get you started, right? And take them through a loan application and close them on a refinance that lowered their payment. An advisor would say, okay, let's tap the brakes. What is your reason for wanting to lower your payment? What are you trying to unlock some cash flow to pay down some? What is it you're trying to do? What is the ultimate goal and objective? Well, all I really care about is paying my mortgage off sooner. Oh, okay. Well, let's look at what rates really did. Yes, if we refinance you today, we could lower your payment by $15 a month. But in order to do that, we would, add another $3,500 or whatever the number is to your balance in closing costs. To me, the difference between an advisor is they're taking in and listening. You already said this, listening to the client and what are the goals and objectives the client's trying to achieve. And sometimes advising is telling it's not the best time to transact with me, right? This is not the best product for you. And so to me, and that's how you build long-term trust, because I've seen plenty of examples where an advisor mentality that said no to a prospective borrower for all the right reasons ended up getting referrals because of the trust that was built from saying no versus just trying to slam them into something that is going to earn a commission.
Right. And you know what? That's so it's so critical. We were in a coaching session when someone said, well, one of the things that AI has done for me is that I don't have to have the relationships. And that, because they have agentics, right? So they have, very specifically, there are products out there right now that give you quote unquote assistance. It could be a marketing assistant. It could be a callback person. It could be, a personal assistant, whatever it is that you need. Somebody who writes your blogs and things like that. And, but when they said that to me, I said, you know what, that's a spark. It's just a spark. That's it. And if you don't nurture that, and if you don't keep blowing on it, that little spark will just fade away. And so in your world, and again, understanding that in the AI driven world that we're in, how important are relationships becoming, Brian?
I think in a lot of ways it's a little bit of back to the fundamentals, right?
Yes.
I even hear this a lot and see a lot of posts on this on LinkedIn where people are starving for the authentic content, the authentic, real, like you and I. Just, hey, audience, just so you know, these are not two agentic bots having this conversation. Two real guys, spending an hour together on this show. People are starving for that real, authentic version of you, whoever you are. And I think as fast as people were excited about, some of the agentic tools, I'm not excited at all about bots calling me on behalf of such and such.
Agreed.
I have no problem as a consumer using a bot, or if I choose that's the path I want to go, I have no problem with that. for certain things. Like yesterday, I ordered something from Home Depot. There was a shipping issue. I spent about 5 minutes trying the automated path. It frustrated me, and so I 000. Give me somebody real. I needed at that point in time. I wanted to get this thing solved. So I don't think we're ever going to disconnect, especially in the real estate finance business, which you already said this. For most people, buying a home and getting a loan, it's the biggest asset on their personal balance sheet and the biggest liability.
Yeah.
I don't think that we're anywhere close where people are just going to rely on a bot or technology or an agentic process to make those lifetime decisions. I think you can leverage, and you should be leveraging technology as the deliverer, as the advisor. It only makes you look better, by the way, when you have the most modern toolkit, as long as you're using it. But nothing's going to replace, the us having these, even if we're on a screen. Kyle Draper talks about this all the time. Our brains are wired. I see JA, I see your eyes. I'm not seeing you and saying, oh, it's just JA on a screen, therefore it's not real. No, it's the real deal. This is a real conversation.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, again, and the one time that we can honestly say, going back to the fundamentals, that is where it goes. It's the relational side, right? The relational side, going back to the fundamentals, but are they actually different today than they've ever been as far as relationships are concerned? I mean,
I don't think so. I mean, we're still very much in a business that relies, the agent is still very much as we talk about the Zillows and the Redfins and the platforms, the realtor.com platforms. There's a reason why, the local agent still does the majority of the business, even with those platforms. And so, those relationships still matter for loan officers. And as much as I want people to think about how to get to consumers early, you do have to do that, but you still don't lose sight of where the business happens today. It's still very much with that local agent. So those relationships are extremely important. But when we also talk about referrals from past clients, I mean, I've done plenty of transactions online, like 100% online, whether it's, Amazon or Home Depot or somewhere else. I never refer to, hey, you got to go to this bot. This bot was amazing. You got to check out this bot. But if a human is delivering it in part of that process, I will always refer to that human if they, did a great job for me. Just like, you go to a restaurant, you get unbelievable service from a waiter or waitress. You're going to tell people about that. If I go into Chick-fil-A and the online ordering was so crazy great, I'm not bragging about it, and I'm certainly not referring people to that Chick-fil-A bot. So I do think relationships never go out of style in our business, for sure.
No, and it just doesn't. And way too many people, by the way. And like you said, those that make it to the middle ground, that makes it to the top, understand that, and they understand it fully. And the ones that are falling down, especially in 2025, saw it happen because there was an awful lot. As a coach, that is fundamental.
Yeah.
That to me is blocking and tackling, right? And yet I've had loan officers tell me to my face that I don't need the relationships with my realtors. And I'm just thinking to myself, my goodness gracious, you know what? Just you saying that translates to all the other resources. You're basically saying I can build it on my own and that's it, right? And that's where I'm going to be. Now, believe it or not, it's already 43 minutes into our conversation, Brian, and I feel like I could talk to you for another 3-4 hours, a whole day, actually.
We could go Joe Rogan style right now.
Exactly, just 3 hours of this stuff. But so I want to get to something that you also had talked about. You've said that 2026 will be the year of separation.
Yeah.
And so tell me about that a little bit. What do you mean by when you say 2026 will be a year of separation? I mean, we talked about a lot of things already right now.
Yeah.
Specifically, what do you mean by that?
So I happen to believe that we will see some, rate drop opportunities that will result in, refinance pockets, right? Little micro bubbles. I don't think we're going to see any kind of boom. I don't even know if we're going to see a boom lit, but we're going to see a couple of pockets, refi pockets here and there in 2026. Where I see separation happening is the loan officers who truly understand the value of their book, the value of the relationships, the value of their client base, the value of their past clients. Hopefully I'm drawing a picture that the separation is going to be from the transactional focused loan officer to the relationship focused loan officer. The loan officer that wrote a loan in 2023 and for a first time home buyer and has stayed in contact and nurtures that relationship, checks back in as an advisor, periodically, makes certain that homeowner knows that Brian's available at any time for any question, not just related to the mortgage that you have, but if there's a problem you're having with your mortgage servicer, if you first part of the year, if you're not sure where to go get your tax statement, make sure reach out to me, all the stuff, right? That's the loan officer that's not going to be at risk when rates drop to that consumer just going to whoever's servicing their loan at the given time.
Yeah.
They're gonna think, oh, my home advisor, my mortgage advisor, JA, told me if you start hearing things about rates dropping, let's make sure we do, a check-in. But more importantly, JA is not going to wait for that. JA is going to get ahead of it and say, hey, Brian, let's get on a call next week. I just want to give you a 30-minute checkup and kind of level set with where the market is today. That's a relationship that started with that first-time home buyer with the mindset of a loan officer that for the next 20 years, every time this person needs home financing, I am their only resource, right? And anytime they're in a conversation with somebody about buying a home, selling a home, refinancing a home, whatever, they're going to think of me. Versus too many loan officers are just chasing the transaction, but then they're the ones pounding the desk the loudest that, oh, the servicer stole my customer, that type of thing. So that's where I see separation happening, because guys, the servicers will not lose when the next refi cycle hits. They've been tooling for this time in the market, and they're not going to lose. They're going to get their share and then some. And they're going to get loans from you if you are not putting in place the same techniques, the same tools that they're deploying at scale. You can do it at a micro level. So that's where I see separation occurring, is when we do see the market give us some refi opportunities, the system focused, the relationship focused loan officers are going to even separate themselves further.
So is that what it really comes down to? If someone were to ask you and that they want to evolve with intention, right? If they want to evolve with intention, not hype, where should they focus first?
I would focus first on the people that already know you, and who better than the people you've already served.
Yes.
That's where I would double down on the people that already know and trust you, or at least trusted you once. I would start there. And it's not too late, right? If you got intentional for the next 90 days, and maybe you have a past client database of 200 people, in the next 90 days, you could literally touch, and I don't mean just putting a canned email in their inbox that they're probably never going to read, but literally figuring out a way to get in front of them for 15, 20 minutes on a Zoom call, or better yet, in a coffee shop. If you did that with the 200 people in your database over the next 90 days, you will be part of that crowd that separates from the rest.
That is such a conservatively said thing, because that is one of the richest places to grow your business, is to reach out to those people, especially those that you just closed within the last year even, right?
Yeah.
Because so many of those people have an incredible excuse right now to call them to just wish them a happy anniversary, whether it's 1 month, a quarter, a half a year, or a full year, just to be able to reach out to continue to let them know, please keep me top of mind, right?
That's right.
And so much of that. And I mean, with full on intention, the difference between an advisor and an order taker, that's really what's starting to happen in 2026. And Oh my gosh, Brian. I mean, that's just rich information. So thanks for sharing that. Can I shoot some rapid fire at you as we close off the show? Do you mind?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. So one belief, just want you to tell me one belief about mortgage that died in 2025.
Oh, wow. One belief in mortgage that died in 2025. Well, we heard Fannie and Freddie are gonna, merge, or they're gonna go, come out of conservatorship. So that you don't hear much of that anymore, by the way, do you?
Right.
We don't hear much about the agencies coming out of conservatorship. So that's one that I think has been kind of quieted. Gosh, what I don't know. That's a good one. You stumped me on that one. I'll have to go to my chat GPT when we're done. And
Yeah, I'm just gonna ask you what one belief, and honestly, I think it is a belief that the majority of my clients, by the way, Brian, don't touch their database.
well, that's
They just don't. I mean, we heard from the MBA this year that one of the things that is a non-negotiable tool is really your CRM. And now that you're added AI, like Salesforce has already added Agentforce into theirs, the automation of all of that, if you're not even utilizing that, you're dead in the water.
Yeah.
Right? So that could be you. All right. So next question. One skill every professional must sharpen in 2026.
communication. The ability to communicate one-to-one and one-to-many. And in a lot of ways, you can do the same. Like you and I are having this one-to-one conversation, right?
Yes.
That is once you've kind of put some polish on it, it will be a one-to-many. And so I think that's the skill that everybody can polish. I work on it every day. I try to improve it.
Me too.
And again, leverage the tools that are out there.
Yeah.
Ask for permission to record a one-on-one conversation with one of your past clients, and there's gold right there in content that you can repurpose in perpetuity.
It's amazing how many deals can come out of just one conversation to people that you've already known that you haven't even touched base with. One common AI mistake you see right now.
You nailed this one earlier in the conversation is taking the output from AI without proofing it, and just either copy paste post or copy paste send. That is a mistake. That is an absolute mistake. Would you ever trust me to write a social media post on your behalf without you ever looking at it and hitting send post? Never.
Right.
And so same thing. It's don't just because it came from chat GPT, don't assume it's 100% correct. Always check that.
That's for sure. Now, we have a lot of leaders that listen to this show. What one leadership trait matters more than ever at this point?
Lead by example.
Yeah. Man.
If you're gonna coach and tell your team that they need to communicate better, to have more conversations with referral partners, then you better be able to demonstrate that you're willing to walk the talk. Here's one that I love. When I hear a leader talk about how frustrated they are that their team doesn't embrace social media, and then I go look up that leader, and the last time they were on LinkedIn was 8 months ago, and they reposted something, and they didn't even put a comment on it.
That is so true. That's so true. One last question, buddy. One word that professionals should anchor to this year.
My word is alignment, and I think everybody could be aligned and use a little bit of alignment. But so for me, it's alignment. For a loan officer, what does that mean? It means if I'm creating messaging and content, I should be doing it in a way that aligns with who I want to receive it and see it and act on it on the other end. And too often when we create content that we're comfortable with and we're comfortable creating. And maybe because it's easy for me to say and I'm comfortable saying, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to align with what someone's going to be, reading it, watching it, hearing it on the other end. So I think alignment to me is my word of the year. It's what we're really focused on at MISMO as well. So I'm It's all about the year of alignment.
Yeah, I love that. I love that word, and it is key, and it's all over our industry right now, by the way. So, Brian, man, 54 minutes into this thing, and I could continue to talk to you still. Unfortunately, we gotta kind of cut it off. I would love to have you on a later date if
Sure.
if you don't mind reappearing, especially with just so many a great follow up to have in 2026. Just kind of see where everybody is. I'd love to have you back on again if you don't mind.
I'd love to do it. And thanks for having me, Jay. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Brian, can't say enough about it. I hope people do go to your article and then somehow or another start to follow you from that perspective. So thanks again.
Appreciate it.
And I'm going to just say goodbye to the group here, but thank you very much for being just an incredible asset and a great guest on the show. Thanks for lending your time. All right, guys. So Brian Vieaux, what an honor, what a privilege. And I love how we ended that show, and it had to do with alignment, right? So that is a key word, honestly, for 2026. And I'm going to go as far as to even say that, and we talked a lot about vocation today. We talked about some relationships inside and how key those are right now. But I want to talk about alignment even a little bit deeper, if I could, by ending the show with this. I do know that vocation is key in all of our lives and the work that we do. But all over that are the 5 other well-beings, and being aligned in that is what's going to be also key in 2026. It is one thing to become successful. And I really truly believe for the best of us, the ones that really want to make it happen, the people that want to go to that next level, it's here to be taken. I think it's going to be a great year. In 2026, I think there's some tools out there. We've talked about some already, just being AI, that is, that will help you. But what does all that success mean if you're off kilter in your spiritual journey and your relationships? And I'm talking your direct relationships, your family, your friends. You know, what is the value of being successful if you've lost that? Your physical. So many unhealthy people that are making it right now, but physically they can't even enjoy the results. Mental mindset is such a key thing right now. And then finally, the philanthropical side, which I talked about earlier. I hope that in 2026, you figure out a way to make a difference in somebody else's life. So with that said, it's been a tremendous episode. And I just want to thank Brian again for lending his time to us. I hope it made a difference. And like I always say at the end of each show, be blessed and go be a blessing. Take care, everyone. See you on the next episode.
And that wraps another episode of Challenging Your Status Quo. We hope you found inspiration and practical wisdom to carry into your daily lives. If JA has inspired you, join our community by subscribing to the podcast. Stay connected with us at latreacoaching.com and through our social media channels, where the conversation and growth continue. On behalf of JA and his whole team, we thank you for listening and invite you to keep challenging the status quo in your own life. Until next time, remember, pursue excellence, live purposefully, and embrace holistic success. We'll catch you next episode.